Why, hello. Last Sunday, transgender activist Janet Mock was featured on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday, where Janet discussed gender identity, womanhood, and her popular memoir, Redefining Realness, which, by the way, you should totally read. They briefly talked about what Oprah called pretty privilege, and I found this idea to be intriguing, so I asked all of you on Tumblr whether or not I should make a video about it, and there was an overwhelming response saying that I should. So, point taken. Let's talk about pretty privilege. So, pretty privilege is another way of describing lookism, which is the practice of discrimination and or prejudice based on physical attractiveness. The term lookism was coined in the 1970s during the first wave of the fat acceptance movement, according to John Ato in 20th Century Words. Although the term has been around for some 40-odd years, it hasn't been used or explored very much. And as psychologist Nancy Etkoff has said, quote, "We face a world where lookism is one of the most pervasive but denied prejudices." Obviously, this idea has been considered. So is lookism real? Let's look into some relevant research. Economist Daniel Hammermesh estimated that attractive men will earn $250,000 more during the course of their career than his less attractive counterparts. The Council for Contemporary Families found that women who were considered to be attractive earned 8% more than the average, while women who were considered to be below average in the look department were penalized by 4%. An analysis conducted by Curran and McCaffrey in 2004 contained the following quote: "In the United States, there currently exists a significant amount of discrimination on the basis of physical appearance, economic status, and ethnicity in that order." In the paper, Is Lookism Unjust?, the authors looked at employees' employment favorability based on their physical attractiveness and found that those in the lowest 9% of looks experienced a 7 to 9% penalty in their ratings, while those in the top 33% were given a 5% premium for being attractive. A study of 9,000 high school students conducted by sociologist Rachel Gordon found that those who their peers rated to be more attractive had higher GPAs and were more likely to go on to college than those that their peers rated to be unattractive. Researchers at the University of Alberta observed 400 parent-child interactions that occurred at supermarkets and found that attractive children were more looked after and cared for in the market by their parents than less attractive children. Whew, that was a lot of research. So it seems, based on these statistics and findings, that lookism actually does exist. While what I just told you represents only some of the research findings that exist out there, lookism is under-researched, and we don't have a whole lot of material to go on. In fact, almost all of the study authors of the studies that I cited emphasize this. Although an interesting twist that, again, almost all of them pointed out in their reports was that lookism is an established historical fact across cultures and societies in history, and it has been acknowledged and accepted in many other cultures historically. So they don't doubt that lookism indeed does exist in our society too. We just haven't acknowledged it yet. But there is one way in which this has been acknowledged, and that is through something called the halo effect. The halo effect is a psychological phenomenon coined by Edward Thorndike that basically says that when someone's impression of you is positive, i.e., you're conventionally attractive and look good, the qualities they associate with you are positive. And it's like you're wearing an invisible halo. For example, when we see a thin person, we usually associate this with being healthy, having a positive well-being, and being happy, while we associate fatness and fat people with gluttony, laziness, and sloth. See what I mean? It's the halo effect. Now, because this type of privilege hasn't been discussed widely, we haven't developed ways of knowing if you have pretty privilege or not. There is no pretty privilege checklist as of now. But I have a feeling you probably already know where you fall on the pretty privilege scale, thanks to social media, traditional media, and any and everything else that encourages us to compare our looks to that of beautiful people and aspire to attain that ourselves. We are constantly assessing our physical appearances. So, because of that, I'm guessing you have an idea as to how conventionally attractive you are in our society. I also want to point out that thin and white privilege do intersect and play a role in pretty privilege, as being thin and being white are part of what we constitute as conventional attractiveness. So, if you have both of these privileges, you're probably going to fall pretty high on the pretty privilege scale just by merit of that. If you're still unsure as to how much pretty privilege you have, here are some questions you can ask yourself to reflect more on this. Do I have trouble finding romantic partners based on my appearance? Are there certain jobs that are or aren't available to me based on how I look? Would I be a good candidate based on current cultural standards to be on the cover of a beauty or fashion magazine? Can I walk into a clothing store and easily find items in my size? Am I part of the demographic that's being targeted with diet pill and plastic surgery advertisements? While these questions alone can't answer the question of whether or not you have pretty privilege, they should help you get somewhere. So now what? How do we fight this beast of lookism? Well, we need to work collectively to establish a framework as to how we're going to activate change around this issue. Here are a few ways you can get started. Don't treat people differently based on their physical attractiveness. Get in touch with those internal biases that you have and notice how you respond to or act differently around those who are considered to be conventionally attractive versus those who are not. And try to take appearances out of the equation while you're at it. Ever wonder why shows in which judges are blinded to the appearance of the contestants are so popular? Like The Voice, as an example. It's basically because you're disrupting the halo effect. See if you can do these sorts of things in your own life and literally take appearance out of it. Finally, acknowledge your pretty privilege if you do indeed know that you have it, and start thinking about how you're going to use that privilege and how your life has been made a little or a lot easier because of it. Until next time.